Hi Sharon, how are you?
Denise. I'm absolutely lovely, thank you.
Isn't it amazing to actually be able to sit
I
together
know.
and paint?
I know. At the end of all this nonsense, here we are together, finally.
Well, we have Sharon Hurst, I'm Denise Allen, and we're sat in my garden in the courtyard painting, and we're dodging showers, and we may have to run quick, but we wanted to play. Now, what we're both working on is we have these sketchbooks. And this was an idea by the amazing Alison Ward. So these sketchbooks you can open them one way, and this is what we're working into, or you turn it around, turn it the right way up, and then you have a different view, and then you turn it around and there's a different view. So they're really, really fun, but this is just something, our project here is working from gardens and florals.
Yes.
So you've just done your book as well, and you've got started. So can I see what you've done so far?
Absolutely. Incidentally, I have a friend who's produced a book like this, and she's themed the whole thing, and it's trees. So she's taken bits of leaf, and she's, pressed them,
Yes.
and stuck them in, and she's drawn trees. It's all trees. Taken bits of bark that she's found, eucalyptus peels,
Yes.
and stuck that in, and it's made the most beautiful book.
Fabulous.
Even stuck in separate pieces of paper that have had, she's used a crayon to on the barks of the trees to get the texture through. So how
That's
cool
fabulous.
is that?
And all of these have got paint on them already, so this is just
Yes.
a background, and it's just a magical way to start a sketchbook, isn't it?
This originally started life as an A1 painting, as did yours.
Yes, yeah.
And it's just in the way that you cut it to produce this booklet, which means that you have already some kind of background.
Yes, and you've gone round and done a beautiful cover on yours. Actually, mine is just a piece of paper, but you never know, we might get to put the cover onto that as well.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So we're just going to sit here and sketch and do a little bit of painting, and talk about what we're doing, and
Chat and have a conversation as we go.
have you dip into our conversation. Yes, indeed. So that's
Thank
yours.
you.
So let's get cracking.
Let's go. Well, I don't even know what page I want to work. That's the next question, isn't it?
It is,
You've
it's
got to look at
deciding.
it all and decide where you want to paint your...
Yes, and which surface you want to put these things on.
Yeah.
I've got quite a lot in mind already, so I think I know where I'm going to go. I'm going to go on one of my blank pages,
Okay.
so I'm starting on a blank page.
Here, look, I've got a page here. It'd be perfect for you if you're going to do that pink.
Oh, isn't that already
Look at that.
there?
It's there, so
Yeah.
you just have to outline the flowers.
Yes. Well, I'm working on my geraniums, and my geraniums, bless their little pot socks, let me take you down to see them. My geraniums here have been in flower since last year. They've just kept going and going and going. We didn't have a particularly hard winter, did we? So I'm just sitting here. I'm not going to do it as a portrait of geraniums. I'm going to do bits of the geranium plant all over my little piece and dot it in. So that's where I'm going with it. I love the buds, the little clusters of buds that you get. So I'm starting with one of those.
Oh, see, I've just discovered on the other side of this, it must have been a waterscape.
Yes.
Because I've actually got the parts of the picture on there.
Already, the sea, yes. Fab.
Right. Come on, Sharon, get your act together and make a decision. I find life very difficult like this. I'm a typical Libra.
Okay.
Typical Libra. Can't make my mind up. Couldn't make my mind up if I tried. Oh. I'm going for your euphorbias.
Yes.
Because I love the colour of them, and you've got some Icelandic poppies. And I think that that's going to be my project.
That's your combination.
Yeah, I think so.
I kind of want to create this into a bit of a collage. You know my deconstruction pieces
Yes,
that I do?
yeah.
I want to kind of do that, but just with freehand painting, rather than cutting things out, and just put bits in different places. And I don't necessarily want the scale to work.
So you're quite abstract with it then, really?
Well,
In a
yes,
way.
it's representational in an abstract form.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No. But we'll find out when you get there, won't we?
Yes, I'll get, I mean, things like I'm doing the little, this bud here at the minute, and I'm doing it representationally.
Okay.
But then I'm going to put some leaves behind it and the flowers, and not necessarily where they are, and it might not be in the same scale, so I might have a massive flower behind it. And
oh,
we'll
that's
see
all right.
what,
That makes that interesting, doesn't it?
yeah, I want to play with the things that I love about this plant, rather than just trying to do a portrait of it.
Yeah. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just free-handed to start with, just drawing some of these lovely. They're very complicated peppers, aren't they?
Aren't they just?
Oh, dear. But it's just that browny, rich, red, orange, and gold that fascinates me.
So I'm starting off by putting 2 or 3 of these bud clusters. You do have to be careful how you say a bud cluster. I'm not going to be saying this on camera when I've had a couple of sherbets. When did you last have a bud cluster?
Sherbets, that's quite interesting. I've never worked out whether I paint better after a sherbet or not, to be honest.
We need to do a traffic brush diggers episode with a few gin and tonics on the side.
Without.
Yes.
Yeah. Could be novel, couldn't it?
Who would want to see Sharon and I painting after a few...
Waffling. I probably waffle anyway, as we are, don't we?
Well, yes, probably.
Oh, gosh. You like painting seascapes, but are you quite content to try your hand at other projects like this, obviously?
Yeah, I like painting, I think is the sentence I would go for. Just full
Right.
stop that I like painting.
Yes, yeah, okay.
I think the thing about the sea, part of the reason I like painting the sea is the challenge of getting something that is static, i.e. my painting,
Yeah.
to try and represent something that is moving, i.e. the sea,
Yeah.
in a way that still looks like it's moving.
Yes.
And when you're watching it, it's changing. So
Yeah.
for me, it's that artistic challenge of going, can I do this?
Yeah.
So in that respect, a landscape becomes relatively easy because it stays put. It doesn't keep moving when you're trying to paint it.
The thing that moves is the sun, isn't it, really? That
Yes.
we found that on a project we were working on the other day, didn't we?
Yes. Just keeps moving.
And it wouldn't stay still.
No, the shadows change and the light changes, and something that was blue at one point, there was an area that went from grey metal to green at one point.
Yeah. And are you drawing through all the colours that you already have in your booklet, or are you trying to avoid them? Are you incorporating them? How are you handling that?
I haven't thought about that in the slightest. I'm just painting things throughout my booklet that I love, but I have got this one on a theme of gardens.
Okay.
So everything in here. But, you know, I've gone from sort of delicate purples and greys on my cover, and then I've got my hellebores, which were pinks and greys.
Yeah.
The next one is yellows, reds and golds from my roses.
Okay.
So, you know, it's just things that I've felt like painting. So this one is going to be a mixture of the pinks and the salmons with all of the greens and the burgundies of the leaves.
That's the one thing about geraniums, they've got the most interesting colours, haven't they?
Yes, throughout. It's not just the flower, it's the leaf as well.
And actually the smell of them too, there's something very evocative about that. Takes many of us back to, of childhood and gardens that we used to play in. Granny's garden, you know, isn't it? It's the kind of colours, that smells and colours that you remember from your granny's cottage garden.
So I'm just going to play first of all and see.
What paints are you using?
I've got watercolours here, and I'm using mostly Shinhan, which I know we both adore Shinhan paints. But there is also probably a few SAA colours in there as well, and I've taken to putting a lot of gold and silver, but mixing it in, and it just gives that sparkle.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I want to try some of your pens at some point as well.
Oh
with
yes,
your sparkle.
yes. I've got some sparkly pens here, so I'm having some fun with those. And you're using a traditional paintbrush, and water. All right,
Yes.
so that's not as crazy as it sounds, because I'm here as a guest and I brought my travelling set with me, and therefore I've got this water spray, and I intend to use my water brush. So this is the medium nib, it's a Derwent number 2, and with those I should be able to accomplish everything that Denise can do. I'm also going to use some Derwent ink tints, and I want to play as well with the Spectrum Noir paints. And they are rather lovely. They're a brush pen, but they have a little bit of glitter in them that makes them
Does love a
exciting.
bit of glitter.
Yes. It makes them exciting. Now this is one thing that we do need to know about working with Denise. If you're next to her, you do get wet.
Okay, I'll rein it in.
No, don't rein it in. I think it's lovely. I love it.
Well, I've just worked out that I forgot to bring my cloth out with me, and I need to go
okay.
back into my studio and do that. So I was just doing a little bit of splatter. So I'm kind of starting with this just very loose, and then I can come back in and add some detail into it. Military jets are still flying around, Sharon.
Yeah, it's busy, isn't it? So why have we got military jets? You're close to...
Close, but it's on the flight path of some of the RAF sites in Suffolk, Norfolk,
Yeah.
and Marham, and yeah, they're not that far away, and every now and then they come past. So if you hear military jets going past, we're not under attack.
But it's a lovely garden. You've got all sorts going on. You've got nests, haven't you? All sorts of birds here.
Robins and wrens and all sorts around us.
Lovely.
Yeah.
But no sunshine as yet. We'd love a bit of sunshine, wouldn't we?
We would, wouldn't we? Just.
Oh, I'm loving these colours. I'm using the sparkly orange at the moment, and it's
wonderful.
absolutely perfect for these bracts. Because I do believe that on a euphorbia, they're not flowers, are they? They're
I don't
bracts.
think they are. Yeah, I think they're probably right.
So I'm just coming in with this orange. Just wetting the petals first, and then throwing a little bit of colour in and letting it bleed and do its own thing.
That's beautiful. Can let me guess. Oh, that's... So we've got this stage of soft things in their place. And now it's started to rain. I think the chance of me having this dry are quite slim.
Yes.
I think I might even have to take it indoors.
We're talking
and use
about
the
wet
hair
into wet now, aren't we?
dryer. Wet into wet into wet.
Oh dear. So now we're tucked up indoors, Denise, out of the rain.
It didn't give up, did it?
No.
We had to do a runner.
Goodness sake. How are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just coming back in. Now I've come indoors out of the rain, my paper is drying.
Yes,
so I'm
of
able to
course.
carry on.
Yeah.
So that's always helpful. Obviously we're now no longer sat in front of our subject. So we're having to remember. I think we got enough down to work from. So it's just a case of being a little bit more imaginative perhaps.
Yes, for it being a little freer now.
I'm just now working back into my buds and putting a bit more a bit more detail into there, so we're getting a little bit more information in the buds.
Oh yeah, that's lovely. Yes, that's lovely. I've been into mine with my pen. I've got this beautiful Kuretake pen that I've fallen in love with.
Oh, this is the one you absolutely adore,
I really
isn't
like
it?
this. I think, you know, if I was free, I'd marry it maybe.
So is it black or?
It's black and it's an Indian ink, but one end we have this very, very fine point. Very, very fine point. And t'other, this gorgeous, sumptuous brush.
Wow.
And that means that I can come into this and I can swipe it through and it runs and bleeds. It's amazing.
So just like an Indian ink you'd expect. Yeah.
Yes, and I've used it here on the peripheries to draw the lines.
Oh,
and
you've got it spread and beautiful.
So if I grab my water pen and then I pull that through, the whole thing just moves and shifts. I love it very much. I think it's.
What happens if you spray onto it?
Yes, it will just explode.
Perfect.
So that will just. Well, we can see what it's done down here with lots of water.
Yes, fantastic. That's amazing.
So let me see if I could bring you in even closer so that you can see what that's done. You see the way
just look at that.
Just
like you say, exploded is the
and
right
of course
word.
you can dip into that and add extra
Dotting
in there. It's the Morse code idea, you know,
yeah.
dot dot dash, but that will give you good movement. So yes, I like those very much. I'm quite taken with that particular brush pen. Quite taken with it. Now then, colour-wise, I think that I want to introduce a little bit just around here and to make this more exciting. I have choices. I can either go into that and I can write about the item that I've drawn and painted, or I can add a little bit of colour around there. I think I'd like to introduce some more red here and across perhaps, because that will extend that across the fold of the page. And I've got orange here, which has nothing to do with me and what I've done today, but I'm thinking that that would just drag it nicely through here, and then if I draw something completely different here, the two pictures will merge. So that's
that
my
would be
plan.
amazing. Yes.
And I think the way I want to approach that is to come in with this spray and just pop some liquid through there, and then I'm just going to let that fire off on its own.
And fire off it is. Isn't it such a stunning colour? They're so powerful, aren't they?
Yes.
I found that when I was doing the tips of my buds,
Yes.
literally I used one dot.
Yes.
But I did manage to get myself in quite a mess.
Now that's just what I'm checking with this one. You see there's no mess with this, so I'm wondering
If I was cack-handed.
No, not at all. I'm wondering if that particular pen has got something wrong with it.
Okay, I'll try it again in a minute.
Because the cap for this is completely clean and the pen itself is clean. So Denise had one that just ran all over her, literally.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So that's not desirable, is it? And then you asked about this, if I can drop the dark pen into
yes.
that. It just gives you lovely soft lines.
I'm going to come back in with a touch more of my opera into those tips of those buds.
Can I have a squidge of your opera? Can I lean across you?
Of course you can.
No, you don't need to pop your, make it inconvenient. I just
No, you're
want
fine.
to drop a little bit into here.
That opera against the orange just kind of has that real sort of fluorescent to it, doesn't it?
It yells, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I just painted that in, and I want to drop some water into it to just pull it off. Do you know, I like Opera Rose very much with reds.
Yeah.
because very often you find that a red can be quite dull when it dries.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean, and it does fluoresce it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it gives it an extra kick.
I think I've got my buds about where I want them.
Oh yeah, that's lovely. Yeah.
So I'm just going to come back into these bits in the background a little bit.
Yes.
And I had enough time to draw them out and just put a little bit of colour down on them, so therefore we now need to just build into it.
Yeah.
And actually, whilst we're checking, I'm going to put a couple of dots of this
And see what happens to it.
how much mess there is. And if there's no mess at all, then it was entirely how I was using it.
But it should be. I mean, you should be able to use it anyhow, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
And not come
Okay,
to
I'll
grief.
put a few little, bring everybody in a little bit there. So I've put these little dots in around, and then I'm just going to take my water, it's just a damp brush, and I'm pulling it out to give me some of those veins.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So I don't want them too strong, I don't want to draw the veins in because it would be too much.
Would you ever think about scratching the veins in with a stick and
Yeah,
letting the colour bleed into the
I don't
crease?
see why not. I quite like that subtlety.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Okay, just
That works, doesn't it?
hold that in a little bit. It is quite subtle. I'm going to make it a tiny bit stronger. I'm nervous about pulling this out and making a mess
And squeezing it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the key. When you pull it out of the cap, don't squeeze, because the squeeze could be the thing that makes it flood.
I don't think I did, but I think perhaps because it took a while to come down,
Yes.
perhaps I just got over enthusiastic with getting
and
it
there
going.
was too much.
Yeah, I think that's probably more likely.
I mean, this is the thing, you never know, do you, with new products until you try them and see what they do and how they behave. And
Yeah. I'm going to go over this a little bit with some of my opera. So I think the two together, again, it's like the orange, the purple and the opera together give you this really, really lovely effect. Adding a little shading into my leaf. I can hear some pencil work going on there. Sharon, what are you up to?
Well, my flowers don't stand out enough, so my only option for that is I can't make them lighter because this is watercolour. And what I have to do therefore is to come back into what's behind them and look at it and balance it. And now I'm going in for a little bit of negative work, and I'm making it darker behind the light petals.
What do we say, Sharon? Light against dark and
Dark against light, it's the law.
And that's how you get things to stand out.
Very true.
Now we'll have a tiny touch of pale apple green. Okay, I'm going to come over and work on this one. Oh, what a shame. The really centre of this particular flower is behind a bud.
Oh. All right.
Don't have to do that one.
Okay. Now let's deal with that problem as well while we're at it. Now this is a visual aid, isn't it? Something that we use as artists. If you have a part of your painting that is particularly difficult, awkward, very hard to handle, don't.
Find a way of
Hide
hiding
it.
it. Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I have a phrase. Doesn't quite work with flowers, but the equivalent is when in doubt, bung in a bush. So if you're doing a landscape and you can't quite see what something's going on. So in this instance, put a petal over it, put a leaf over it. If there's a really tricky bit, hide it.
And by the same token, if you do have a wobbly moment or there's an accident or a problem, that is just an opportunity that you haven't used yet.
Yes.
don't despair. You know, every now and again, if you're painting, you have a wobbly hand moment and you drop the brush.
Oh,
and
yes.
you never drop the brush with something nice on it, do you?
No.
It's always a dark colour that goes splat right in the middle of the sky, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we land up with that little dark mark in the sky and we all sit here and want to cry because we don't know what to do with it.
Ooh.
Turn it into a bird.
Yes.
If it happens with a flower and you've got a nice background, turn it into... Butterfly goes in there, a moth goes in there, a bee goes in there.
Bees are good.
They're all opportunities you haven't used yet. They're not accidents and mistakes. Think about it and think left field and do something different. Nothing wrong with that. Now then, I am going to grab a pen and I'm coming into this, and because I'm going to treat this in a journal fashion, I want to write the name of the plant in here. So we're talking about euphorbia. All right.
I'm glad you know how to spell
that. And I would go away and I would find out both the common name and the Latin name, and I would like to write that in there.
Okay.
And then you can perhaps find a little quote about euphorbia.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Or a memory that you might have. I'm going to write somewhere in here. I want a different pen this time because I think it's quite nice to use different textures and thicknesses. And down here I just want to write in beware sap.
Okay, yes. They can be a bit like that, can't they?
Exclamation mark. And if we're doing something like this, and like me, I'm away from home, I want to make sure it's a memory. So I would write something about Denise's garden.
Or the messy hands that she had on the
Yes,
day.
that's right.
Yeah.
And if you've been listening to music that you like that's particularly an earworm, you know, we all get those every now and again.
Don't we? Yes.
I would put that down here. And if I'm sitting here drinking, that reminds me, I've lost the tail end of my coffee somewhere.
I think I put it over on the side. It's probably stone cold.
I don't care about that, quite used to that. You know, so things like this, write your little memories, and then this turns this into a memory book as much as anything else.
Yeah, that's fabulous. You're very, very good at the nature journalism. Journaling.
Oh, I love that, yes, yes.
I do the plein air painting, but I just go out and look at the big picture, and you do the journaling and the detail and the thoughts. I don't have many thoughts.
Just what bit am I going to do next, and
Well,
what colour do I put in there?
I get fascinated by the actual physical look of somewhere, so I'm just concentrating on trying to do something that relates to that.
Yes.
Rather than thinking about, oh, this is a euphorbia or anything like that. That's pretty.
No, I get that, because then that means you're caught in the moment.
Yeah.
Therefore, I think I'm going to choose a smaller pen. I've got euphorbia, so euphorbia is the name of it in Latin, we have since discovered. And the common name for this particular plant is spurge.
It's not a very attractive name, is it?
No, I wonder where that came from.
Euphorbia is much nicer.
Yes, interesting. And down here, I'm just going to pop the quote in, and I'm going to say whips of flames. Whips of flames. And then we've got to make sure that we dedicate that to J.R.R. Tolkien. I-E-N, Sharon. And it came from the Silmarillion, and I'm going to put that in there because I know that I will be looking in the future to this and wondering where the devil I got that quote from.
Yes.
So I just want to put that in. I'm going to put that in brackets. And the reason for doing this is just purely and simply because it gives you, or it gives me, a really rounded story on this plant now. you know, I can look at that and read this, and it gives me a little more than just something visual.
Yeah,
It gives me
fabulous.
something to read, something to think about, and maybe even go and research.
Gives you a point of reference.
Yeah.
When you
Yes.
come back and look through
Yes.
this, you kind of go, I remember that day.
That's
And that's
right.
what's the beauty
That's
of this.
right. And we didn't do that actually, did we? I'm going to put up here that a damp day.
A damp day in Norfolk.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us again today. It's been lovely to have you with us, both in the garden and in the studio. And Denise and I have thoroughly enjoyed your company. And we'd both like to say thank you very much for dipping into our conversation. Do you agree, Denise?
Absolutely agree. Dip into our conversation all the time. I love it.
And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.